What's farming and ranching? Those were the big ways people made a living in Texas until the 1900s. Okay, when the 1900s started, a new industry came into being in Texas, and it was the way people made money then. The big economic way in Texas after the 1900s was what? Oil. When they discovered oil. Now, oil itself had been around. People knew what it did forever. Okay? Oil had always, it's a natural thing, right? It's not something that people make. It's stuff that comes out of the ground, correct? So people knew about it. And it had some limited use. Like they would burn oil in lamps and, make kerosene and stuff like that. But there was only so much demand. Can you think of what had to be invented before there was a huge demand for oil?
Oil. Those things, I don't know what they're called.
No, that pops the oil. Okay? What, Sadie? The car. There has to be, for a product, like they knew about the oil in the ground for hundreds of years. But the fact that they invented the automobile that runs off of what? Gasoline, which is made from oil, right? Those things when that was invented, that made a demand for it, so people wanted to start looking for it, okay? And so Texas has large oil deposits. I want you to label this, because obviously y'all just said, I'm not for sure what that thing is called. So let's label these things, because this is going to be important. This is basically a pump jack. Oh, I don't like that color blue. I like the dark blue. Hang on. Long blue. Okay. So right, pump jack. Right here, you need to know what that thing is called. Pump jack. And this tower, what is that called? Y'all know?
Is it just an oil tower? Oil tower?
No, it is oil something, an oil derrick.
We have one of those in Maine.
There are, nowadays, and I think I'm spelling it right. Nowadays, oil derricks on the back of trucks. They move them. There was one right down here from the school last week. Did y'all notice it? Okay. They drive, anytime they're going to work on one of these pumps, the pump jack, they will drive a truck there that has a derrick on it. That derrick raises up, and then they're able to work on it. That helps them work on it. It runs pipe down into the ground. They feed pipe through the top of it. But nowadays they're on trucks. Okay? Used to, they'd have to build one over every well that they were working on. Yes, ma'am.
Is it one word?
No, sorry, that's 2 words. Yes, somebody?
Isn't there one in the middle of Van?
Oh, there's an old one set up. Yes, there is one by the dollar, across from the Dollar Tree, or whatever that is. Not Dollar Tree, Dollar General.
Isn't that what,
There's one at the,
Oil Museum?
yeah, the old museum has 2.
That's right.
Okay? Those used to be all over Van, because anytime they would leave them up years ago, because that way they could work on a well what they needed to. And then nowadays they have trucks though, where they just they just have them on that truck.
is there whatever by that, where Sunshine Friends is?
Yeah, that's true.
Yes, I don't know that one wasn't moved to the museum recently. I don't honestly know. It's kind of one of those things that's so common now, I don't pay attention. All right, well, let's talk about
What does it do?
what does that derrick do?
Yeah.
It's what they use when they're working on it. It helps them, because of the height of it, they can run pipe down, and it helps them drill for oil. It's what they use to work on the well. It's like a framework that they use to have for pipes and stuff they're going to use working. Okay? So when you see it like that, that's when they've just dug the well and it's come up, and it's called a gusher, and they really don't want that to happen. Back then, there was no way to stop it. Once you hit oil, the pressure in the ground is so hard on the oil that it makes it shoot up out of the ground, and then they would have to cap it, and it would waste a lot. Nowadays, we have technology to where we prevent that from happening when we're digging wells. Okay? They don't want that to happen. I mean, it was kind of a good thing, because you knew you'd hit oil, but then you got to hurry and race and try to cap the well off so you don't waste it much. All right, so how all this got started: oil and natural gas deposits are found all over Texas. Oil was discovered in 1901 at a place called Spindletop. Now,
One word.
yeah. Spindletop's outside of Beaumont, Texas. Beaumont is over here by Houston. You can kind of see, well, the video shows it. Here's Houston, Beaumont's right here, Spindletop's just outside of Beaumont. And when I say discovered, again, y'all, they knew about oil, right? It's just that's when they discovered this huge gusher of oil where, I mean, we found oil in huge deposits. Got it? In large amounts. The discovery of oil led to the founding of many companies that y'all have heard of in your life. Now, originally, y'all seen these things right here? What are those to you? Those are gas stations. But originally, they were the oil companies. Okay? Exxon, Texaco, Mobil. You see that symbol right there on some gas stations?
No.
Okay? We don't have many around here, but Mobil is a brand of oil. But we just don't happen to have them right here in East Texas. But those big oil companies started in Texas. They started as drilling for oil and getting it out of the ground, and then they opened up the gas stations to sell what they were getting out of the ground. Does that make sense? Okay. Exxon and Texaco or Mobil were originally called Humble Oil or Humble. There's a little town outside of Houston called Humble, or Humble. I'm saying it wrong every time. Humble. Humble Oil there's a town called Humble that was created when they discovered oil.
Wait, isn't it or something like that? Isn't it actually Humble's like a brand?
That's when you say it like a person is humble, like your personality means you're meek, you're shy. But the oil company was Humble. That was somebody's last name, and I was just saying it wrong. Okay, it increased I have gone blank on what that should be, y'all. I don't know what that answer is. Can y'all give me a second to look? I'm going to have to go back and look at old notes. I've gone blank. I don't have to do this very often, but I am today. That's what I get for not looking at this ahead of time, isn't it? Am I disappointing y'all because I can't remember? Is that a disappointment?
Caleb saying yes.
Do y'all think I'm a failure? Am I a failure in your eyes now?
Yes.
Sorry.
So sad.
I'm human. Oh, jobs. Real simple word there. It increased jobs in Texas.
There's a lot of words that could go there.
Yeah. A lot of people, went from farming, barely making a living. Now they can go get a job in the oil field. They're going to be a lot of profitable. A lot of people around here that were, I've always say, well, my granddaddy was a farmer. All he did was farm. Well, everybody around here was like that. When the oil was discovered in Van, when they discovered a deposit of oil in Van, then people went to work in the oil field in Van. It increased a lot. A lot of the schools and different things in our area that the buildings y'all see that you went to school in, like y'all know what the administration building is. Mm-hmm. Y'all know like the school y'all went to. I think for y'all it would have been the intermediate school at that time.
We didn't
go to
Y'all, that was the okay. But y'all know where that school is now, by the auditorium.
Yeah.
All of that stuff in Van was built in the 1930s when they discovered oil in Van. They had to real quickly build a school because people were moving to Van to get a job. And so they had to educate the people's kids that are moving here. So money was flowing in. The oil company, actually, back then in Van, it was Pure Oil Company. They helped pay, gave a lot of the buildings and stuff at the school. A lot of that came because of the oil industry, because they had to start building things for people moving here. So it just increased the jobs. What we call the standard of living increased in Texas. You had money to buy things. If your house, up till this point, stuff like washing machines were invented during this time period. You could afford to buy a washing machine. All sorts of different inventions that run off of electricity. They all happened about this time, and so people were able to buy them because now they have jobs where if you're just a farmer, then you probably weren't, you didn't have enough money to buy those kind of things.
How much
Yes.
did gas cost back
I do not know per gallon. I have no idea.
then?
I mean, it would be probably, I'm guessing like maybe nickel, quarter.
That would be so
Gallon.
nice if it was.
That would be nice.
I mean, I remember myself as a kid when it was less than $1. So it's not that like it's been that long that it was. Yes.
Didn't there used to be like a time where they like limited who could get oil or something like that?
Well, now they used to charge during the 1970s. There was a shortage of oil, and the price went ridiculous. Where like there were lines at gas stations. You had to wait in line, and they only gave you so much gas. They didn't say you couldn't buy it, but everybody could only get so many gallons at a time. They did that during World War II also, because they wanted to send most of the fuel to the army fighting Hitler, the Nazis, World War II. And so they limited how much people could buy. They never said you couldn't, you just could only have so many gallons a month.
Or like certain days you could get gas.
Yes.
Didn't like back then you didn't have to like plug your own gas?
Yeah, they had people at a service station. They did it for you. All right, let's move on. Number 4, the increase in the number of, no,
Money.
it's what Sadie's already said, automobiles. When automobiles became affordable in the 1920s, 19 teens, your ordinary people could afford an automobile. 1920. It wasn't just your rich people that had cars. When ordinary people could start buying them, Ford Motor Company created a car called the Model T. And that car, everybody could afford. It was cheap. And that was why he made it. Everybody could buy one. And so by selling it to the masses of individuals, then
Got more money.
he was going to make more money. All right, inventions that affected the oil industry. A guy named Howard Hughes. At one time, he was one of the richest men in America. He was the Jeff Bezos, isn't the guy? That's the guy that owned Amazon.
Okay.
Bill Gates is a big computer company, Microsoft. Howard Hughes was that guy in the 1920s and 30s in Texas. Okay, he was rich because of the oil industry. He invented a rotary drill bit. That could dig through rock faster, 10 times faster than an ordinary drill bit. It could go and dig deeper into the ocean, and you could dig deeper into the land. Y'all, before Howard Hughes' invention, and this is it right here, okay? Y'all know like a drill bit on the end of like a drill if you're drilling a hole in the wall?
Mm-hmm.
You know how that looks? It's just like a single drill bit, and it just rotates like a drill bit on a saw. And just okay, that's all they had at first. He invented this thing. It's got extra gears. Okay. Not only is it rotating this way, but as it's rotating, those other gears are rotating. See why it would dig better?
How big is it?
That right there would probably be about like this.
Dang.
Okay.
I thought it would be teeny.
No, they're big. They're big drill bits. Okay.
Yeah.
Be a heavy drill bit.
They are very heavy, yes. And they have them larger than that. If they're digging certain, especially nowadays where the technology is so much better, they can be a lot bigger than what I was showing you. All right. The development also of directional drilling. Made it more possible to drill in other landforms. Okay, this is directional drilling. You would think you could only drill in what direction?
Down.
Straight down. Okay? That was the first way it was done. But now look, they can dig at angles. You see this picture right here? Okay? It made it to where, from one well, yes, you could dig straight down, but with directional drilling, you could get into different formations of rock and go in different directions, all directions. Not just beside that well, but out in front of it, behind it, all the way around it. Okay? Directional drilling. They also discovered offshore drilling. That's where they dig out and where?
The ocean.
Dig in the ocean.
Ooh.
There's oil, a lot of oil in the Gulf of Mexico, off of the coast of Texas, over to Louisiana, all the way over to Florida. Mexico itself has offshore oil drilling, and that's what this is, this picture right here. Those platforms, and y'all see these towers on them?
They put oil in the
Seen those
ocean?
before.
No, those
That's
are
all
it's encased. It goes through the water, the pipe, okay, down into the ground of the ocean.
Steve, how do they hold
I
up?
didn't know that all those things is what gets the oil. I just thought it was some like.
Yeah, these towers are what they use to run the pipes down when they're drilling. Yes.
Was America the first country to just like find it, or did another?
Oil had always been known about. It's just
Yeah.
we were one of the first places where, in Russia, was an early place too. But I'm thinking yes, the United States was the first place where they started drilling it in these large numbers. Canada also has a lot of oil deposits, and so does Mexico. Yes.
My dad had a truck with those big things on it, but he sold it.
He sold it. He did because he's not in that business anymore, right?
Well, he's into it.
Yeah.
So do like people go down and put like the
No, it's
go down?
no, it's all done through like when they dig it, they put like a big huge pipe from this platform to into the ground of the ocean, the floor. That's the word I'm looking for. The ocean floor. So no, everything's done
How do they
up
know
top.
How do they know how deep it was?
How deep they have? They have like seismic measurement things. They can do
Yeah.
like geologists.
They had that back then.
This is a more modern, right here. That kind of drilling. I'm going to say probably in the 1960s, 70s. They started doing this.
And then boats
But how do
come
they
by
hold
and
oil
connect
on the
up
boat
into
without
that.
it like drowning?
How does any kind of big boat float? It's just the way they've got it
But
built.
if you put water in it, which is basically oil, it's liquid. So if you have water,
The boat itself is so big it supports the weight. They before they fill it up, they know how much weight it's going to hold. All right, we're not going to get finished if y'all keep asking questions like that. Not a bad question, but let's keep going on. All right, Texas changed because of the oil industry. Okay, we go from what we refer to as being a rural state. Rural is like, think living out in the country. It's a populated area, or sparsely, hardly anybody living there, dominated by agriculture. This is a picture of a rural area. We have a lot of areas that look like that around here, don't we? Okay? But we also are not very far from what we call urban areas. Urban areas are big cities. That one is particularly Dallas in that picture. But urban areas, or more densely populated area dominated by businesses and industry, we would commonly call that the city. Rural and urban. We're still considered a rural area in our area. Okay? Not as populated as like Dallas, Fort Worth, Austin. Even Tyler isn't totally urban, although it's getting there. Okay? Texas populations moved to the city during the early half of the 20th century. That's the 1900s. Okay? Because of this. I knew Kaylin was going to wonder why. Kaylin, didn't the world think it had to start at year 0, right? 0 to 99 is the first century. Because it had to be something. Okay? So starting at 100 through 199 would have had to be if that's the first century, what's this one? Second. You see why it's a little bit off every time?
But why don't they just do 0 through 100 and make more sense?
No,
That's
because
not-
100
because
starts the next century.
Because that's 101 years technically, because you got to have a 0. Okay, so that's why. So like right now we are in year.
Wait, why do you have to have a 0 if you start?
Because nothing has actually happened yet. Didn't have a whole year.
Oh.
We're in the
Okay,
21st
now look,
century,
we're
right?
in 2021. So what century are we in? We're in the 21st.
Oh.
Okay, I bet you've heard that. Now even in 2022, we're still going to be in the 21st.
Yeah.
All the way
But when did the
99.
21st
Until-
century start?
Huh?
2099.
The 21st century started in the year 2000. Whatever you have here, add whatever your first 2 digits are, add 1, and that's what century you're in.
It's not going to be
I
another
thought it
century until
started in
2099.
Yes.
Probably.
Y'all may or may not live until the next century. I guess technically it's possible, but a lot of people don't live to be. All right,
That's only like
here we
60
go.
years. Like 70 years.
Central Texas. All right, here we go. So that was the 20th. Central Texas is the blank here. And the coast of Texas had major population growth during this time. the panhandle of Texas, in areas close to the Red River, saw very little growth. They didn't discover oil there too much later. In the 20th century, urbanization was caused by the following industries. People moved to town because of the, I'm just double checking myself. I think I know the answer to this. Oh, these notes are longer than I thought they were. But it'll be all right. We'll hurry. People moved because of the oil industry, the transportation industry, cars, right? If you're going to be having cars, what are you going to have?
Roads.
Yeah, all that stuff tied to it. You also have to make the cars, right? You have to have factories for the cars. And banking. Once people start making money, they're going to want to open banks so people can put their money in them. Urbanization caused increases in jobs in what we call the service industries. Service industries are stuff like restaurants, banks, hospitals. They provide a service. Okay? Like a factory, they make something and you go sell it, right? Service industries, they're providing a service for people. Hotels is a service. Schools, I'm providing your parents a service by giving you the best education I can. Hospitals, okay? All that stuff are service. Events that are important during this time period. The World War I happened during this time period. The United States was involved in World War I for just 2 years. World War I actually went from 1911 to 1919. But we only got involved in the end of it. When we got involved, we basically helped win it, so it ended. Okay? The horrible, remember that storm we watched at the beginning of the year when we were talking about Texas weather? Mm-hmm. Where did that horrible hurricane hit?
Houston.
The Galveston storm. They technically didn't even call it a hurricane because, I mean, it was just, during that time period they weren't quite understanding.
Yeah.
The Galveston storm occurred in 1900. The city's raised its elevation. Y'all, what did they build to protect the city? Y'all remember?
They built that
There
wall.
you go. The seawall.
Y'all.
Yes, Ricky, they built the seawall.
Kaylin says mine.
Number 3, industries moved from Galveston, England to Houston. Houston saw its population grow crazy after that storm because they were afraid. People were afraid to live in Galveston. They wanted to move. We also had what's called a boom bust cycle.
Busted.
Is that the baby boom?
No, it's a little different. Boom bust cycle is a period of great profits. That's the boom. People made money at the beginning of all this. And then there was a downward trend in industry. There was too much of products. If there's too much of something, the price bottoms out, right? That's the bust. So in Texas, we saw a boom bust in farming. They invented something in this picture right here. It's a kind of tractor. It's called a harvester. To harvest people's crops. Farmers could produce crops more easily, so they produced too much. And then when they did that, they had too much of a product, so what's going to happen to the price? So if you're the first person who got a tractor that was a harvester, you made money because you were the first one doing it. Everybody after you, when everybody else got a harvester, they started losing money. Okay, now I want you to we're going to start this. This is going to help us to where tomorrow we get to go and have a little more free time. So if you don't need anything except your Chromebook off of your desk at the moment. Oh, you do need a pencil. Sorry, grab a pencil and